Beautiful. All right. So I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. We are meeting in a hybrid format with some of us here at Casco Bay High School and some online via Zoom. I also want to note that we do not have Board Member Biliou with us tonight due to a death in her family. So we'll be holding her in our thoughts tonight. Superintendent Townsend, will you please call the roll?
I will. Vice Chair Bondo.
Présent.
Member Bryden.
Here.
Member Figdor.
Here.
Member Grant. Here. Member Opperman.
Here.
Member Russell Better.
Here.
Member Youssef.
Here.
Member Ellis.
Here.
Member Hemond.
Here.
Member Santiago.
Here.
And Chair Lentz.
Here. And now we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
and indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
The Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqiyik or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy or People of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. Now we're going to move to public comment. As a reminder for public comment, it's open to anything we're not voting on tonight. The board may not respond to any comments, and please refrain from responding in the audience. No complaints or allegations will be allowed in public concerning any staff member or any person connected with the school district. To give public comment, please come forward to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Begin by introducing yourself and with your name and address. We will alternate batches from Zoom and in person if needed. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll keep the time, and when you've reached 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll raise a yellow folder indicating that you have 30 seconds remaining. At 3 minutes, I'll raise a red folder signifying the end of your time. If you get to the end of your allotted time and would like to request more time, you may do so. Is there anyone that would like to give public comment? Please come forward if so. Okay, and I'm just going to check Zoom. All right, I see no hands up and no one here in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Superintendent Townsend, did we want to move right into personnel or do remarks first?
Personnel.
Personnel first. Okay, beautiful. All right. So, hold on, I've got to scroll through my agenda. So first up tonight, we have a vote for our superintendent, our new superintendent, which is really exciting. And so the motion that's going to be on the floor tonight for that position is to move to authorize the board chair, me, to execute a contract for the employment of a superintendent in the form negotiated between Dr. Ryan Scallon and the board chair. And the contract is an attachment in board docs tonight, but could I get a motion for that? Thank you, Board Member Opperman. And is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Youssef. We don't have public comment on personnel items, but are there any questions from the board? Any discussion? Yes, Board Member Grant, go ahead.
I would just like to say a few words about my participation tonight, since this has been an ongoing issue since January, just to let my colleagues know and the public know that I will be voting tonight. This has been sort of agreed to by all those involved because of the unique position the superintendent plays in the structure of, with the board. Everyone felt it was appropriate for me to vote on this. I do want to make it clear to everyone that I played no part in the winnowing process, as it were, to get from the list of applicants down to the finalists. So I did recuse myself from all that, but I did participate in the final interviews and will be voting tonight. So I just wanted to clear that up for everyone who may have a question. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Grant. And I am going to speak to Dr. Scallon in my remarks in just a few moments to celebrate kind of all the strengths that he's bringing to our district. But is there any other discussion? All right, then by roll call vote, please indicate if you're in favor of this motion. So Superintendent Townsend, can you please call the roll?
Yep. Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden,
Yes.
Member Figdor,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Opperman,
Yes.
Member Russell Better,
Yes.
Member Youssef,
Yes.
Member Ellis,
Yes.
Member Hemond,
Yes.
and Member Santiago,
Yes.
and Chair Lentz.
Yes. And I also just had a note from Nyalette, who could not be here, but if she was, she would have voted yes as well, which means we have a unanimous vote of support for Dr. Ryan Scallon to be our next superintendent here in Portland Public Schools. And Dr. Scallon is on Zoom. So Ryan, if you're there and you want to come, oh, there you are. Perfect. If you wanted to say a few words, we are here to hear them.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me just start by sharing that I'm truly humbled and honored to be provided this opportunity. When we get into education, we all do it because we believe in the potential of all students and want to help them reach that. And I look forward to joining a district whose goal is to make sure that all students graduate empowered and prepared. You know, when I was in Portland a couple of weeks ago, I was able to meet students, teachers, leaders, families, community members, and all of them talked about their belief in Portland's public schools and the collective commitment to making the district even better. I look forward to joining and helping to lead that work. As I get to know the community and start in this transition, I think there are probably three things that I would just share this evening, knowing that we'll have a lot more opportunity for introductions and getting to know. But the three things: first, I believe strongly in the power of schools where students feel safe, engaged, and challenged. You know, safe is our bare minimum, but we want to make sure that all students are excited to go to school because it's a safe, welcoming environment. Engaged, students have access to classes where they come home and are excited to talk about them, where they get to participate in enrichment and music and art, and that they have extracurriculars that they love and that they talk about for years to come. And challenges where students are getting pushed to achieve at high levels with challenging inquiry-based classes, including things like advanced placement. And I got to tell you, I'm excited and a little bit nervous because I feel like this is a little bit of an advertisement for Hair Club for Men, because I'm excited to not only be a leader in the district, but also a parent. And having children in the schools means that my toughest critics are going to be around the dinner table every night. The second piece just to share is I don't believe this work, if we're going to achieve schools like that, I don't believe this work can be done alone. And so I really look forward to partnering with the board, the leaders that are going to get introduced tonight, as well as all of the other staff leaders, students, families, community partners, nonprofits, university, city, agencies, everybody, to really wrap our arms collectively around Portland Public Schools and our students to see them be successful. And then third is I look forward to sharing more about the transition in the future and how I and the district will work to make sure we're engaging all communities in developing our joint path forward. So again, thank you so much for this honor. I really look forward to, in the weeks ahead, rolling up my sleeves and getting to work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scallon. We are so excited to have you. Thank you so much. And now we want to move on to some more exciting personnel updates. Go ahead.
Great. It's my honor to introduce an item tonight for the appointment of 3 new administrators for Portland Public Schools and to recognize the transitions of 2 administrators at Deering High School. So first, the action in front of you tonight is for the appointment first of Amy Marks to be the new principal at King Middle School. So Amy brings with her many years of school leadership experience, specifically having led expeditionary learning, or now EL education schools in Boston, abroad, and most recently at Harpswell Coastal Academy. So we're very excited to have Amy joining the King faculty to lead them forward as they continue to deepen their instructional vision and alignment and be responsive to the needs of all learners, particularly the multilingual learners that they've incorporated into their school over the past year. So we're excited to have Amy joining our team. The second one is, it is a new appointment. He is a familiar leader to us in the system. So I'm excited to announce the appointment of Terry Young as the principal at Talbot Community School. So as we know, Dr. Young has been a school leader with significant experience, most recently here in Portland as the leader at Longfellow Elementary, prior to that in Saco, and before that in Auburn. So we're, and of course, as people are familiar, he spent the past year with us as our executive director of operations. So we're excited to have him return to a school leadership role to succeed the wonderful principal Hannah, who we honored this evening, to continue to deepen the work at Talbot and their community school model, and grow that community over the coming years. And then the last new appointment that we'll be voting on tonight is for the assistant principal at Casco Bay High School. So very excited to announce the appointment of Priya Natarajan as the assistant principal at Casco Bay. So Priya has been with the district since 2002 as a math teacher, highly decorated with national awards for her instructional leadership, and has served the district over the past couple years as our high school math coach, supporting math instruction at all 3 of our high schools. We're very excited to bring Priya into the school leadership fold here and support the Casco Bay community, where she was both a teacher, crew leader, and parent. So we're very excited to have these 3 leaders joining our system, for the coming year. I want to acknowledge it's not an action item because there are administrators in our system already, but to announce to the community some transitions in the leadership structure at Deering High School for the coming year. So we're very excited to have Dr. Jake Giesman assume the role of principal at Deering High School for the coming year. So Dr. Giesman has been a school leader in Portland Public Schools for many years, 9 years at this point, assistant principal at Moore Middle School, then at Deering for the past few years, and has been serving this spring as the interim co-principal. So we're excited for Dr. Giesman's leadership and to lead Deering forward into the future. And we're also excited that co-principal Allison Dame is transitioning into the coming year to serve as an assistant principal. So we appreciate, Ms. Dame has been with Deering for 5 years and has served for the past 4 years as co-principal with Dr. Abdullahi Ahmed. So we're excited for the transitions ahead at Deering and the leadership that Ms. Dame has had particularly around the instructional work at Deering over the past few years, and excited for her to be able to continue that in her new role as assistant principal and part of that team. So we appreciate their leadership, the stability within the Deering community as we go through these transitions. So the action item before us this evening is to approve the slate of the 3 new administrators, Ms. Marks, Dr. Young, and Ms. Natarajan before us.
Beautiful. So is there a motion for that? Board Member Bryden, is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Bondo. Oh gosh, I moved my agenda again. Hold on one second. We don't do public comment on this. Any questions on the motion? No? Any board discussion? All right, then we'll do a roll call. Oh, yes.
I was just going to let everyone know that I will return to my ways of abstaining for the personnel matters.
Thank you, Board Member Grant. Okay.
Great. We'll do roll call. Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden,
Yes.
Member Figdor,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Same.
Member Opperman,
Yes.
Member Russell Better,
Yes.
Member Youssef,
Yes.
Member Ellis,
Yes.
Member Hemond,
Yes.
Member Santiago,
Yes.
and Chair Lentz.
Yes.
Great. And we have a few of them with us this evening. So if we can, would like to take just a brief moment for them to say a word. So maybe we can start with you, Amy. I know that you're there on Zoom. So if you'd like to say a few words, and welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to get to join the Portland Public Schools, having led, as Erin said, a school in Boston for many years that was also a collaborator and partner with King Middle School. So I worked collaboratively with that school for many years, for about 8 years while I was in Boston. And now having led schools abroad in India and Thailand and having come back to Maine, it feels really great to be coming to be a part of Portland Public Schools to again continue to work in an urban and diverse community and support all learners to reach high levels of achievement. So excited about the continued work around expeditionary learning and making meaningful learning happen for the students who connect to the real world, but also reach very high levels of achievement for all students. So great to join you and look forward to the work.
Great. Thank you, Amy.
Good evening. And I just want to say I've been really proud and privileged to be a public school math teacher for 25 years, 21 of which have been in Portland Public Schools. And I am incredibly grateful for the education that my own child received in our system. And I'm grateful to be able to give back in a new role, supporting our teachers, our faculty, our students, and our families at Casco Bay. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Priya.
Good evening. I just want to say that I'm thankful that I'm remaining in the Portland Public Schools. In about November, I realized that I really wanted to return to school leadership for a number of reasons you all are well aware of. And so I'm really thankful that I had the support of Malia and Aaron and the board so that I can return to leading a school, something I've been passionate about for 20 years. And really happy that I can stay in Portland and do that. So I just appreciate everyone's support, and I look forward to a new challenge. Thank you.
All right.
I couldn't tell if you were going to say something great. I have just noticed that my cheeks are hurting tonight because of all the great news with the retirees and all these administrative moves. And nights like this remind me why I'm here and why I believe so deeply in the Portland Public Schools. And just thank you, all of you, for everything you do to get us where we are today. And I also just want to acknowledge that Aaron Townsend is going to be moving into the Deputy Superintendent role, which I feel incredibly grateful for his continued leadership in the district. I just cannot tell you what a joy and delight it has been to get to work with Aaron over the last year. His thoughtfulness, compassion, and ability to always take in information, even when things are incredibly hard, has just been amazing. And we are so lucky to have him in this district, and I cannot wait for you in this new role. I would also just invite any other board members, if you wanted to offer thanks or congratulations, now would be the time to do that to any of these awesome administrators. Go for it. Board Member Opperman, I see you.
Looking forward to working with you all. Good luck.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just to sort of be a little bit redundant. I'm so excited and I'm so proud of all of you and I'm so happy I could burst. I'm just, yay, hooray, yay. Okay.
It's going to be your subtitle from now on. Board Member Bryden. All right. Yeah, Board Member Figdor.
I want to congratulate everyone tonight, but I want to in particular thank Aaron for his leadership over the years, but in particular in the last 6 months. I know you never intended nor wanted to step into the role of interim superintendent, co-superintendent with Malia, and you did with such grace. And provided a steady hand in a really challenging time. I appreciate so much of what you bring. And your being in the deputy superintendent role gives me a lot of confidence that we will stay the course in terms of our equity vision and the Portland Promise, and the many changes that we've made in recent years in order to be positioned to see our vision through. So, thank you. You give me hope and for the future. So, look forward to continuing to work with you, Aaron. Thank you.
Yes. Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to congratulate each of you and emphasize what Member Victor just mentioned about Deputy Mr. Aaron. And it's just going to be, it's really a deep pleasure and a respect for what you have accomplished, and also your humility, to handle situation and just be there for the better for the school and for the district and especially for the student, and getting my hard copy all the time when I'm looking for it. But the one I really want to go deep in my heart is for prayer, and I was expecting it. I was looking for it. And I've been working with Priya with couple projects, and I've been watching her see the passion and commitment that she had for the student, and just bringing the voice for the marginalized students to be on the table, and making sure that they can shine and moving to the high achievement. And I cannot wait to see her shine into the new position. And I just and I look for it. Congratulations, Priya.
I will piggyback off of that. Congratulations to everyone being honored tonight. I'm really just excited to see what everyone does, but especially Ms. Natarajan. I'm so excited to have you in our community, hopefully for the next 2 years until I graduate, hopefully for longer. But you really have just been a saving grace for us all. I mean, you guys should see her at lunchtime. It is seriously impressive. And yeah, you really have just been amazing. We're so lucky to have you, and I can't wait for more chats and time with you in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Sarah, I'm sorry. I realized I'm not finished. I just want to take the opportunity to thank Terry for his unbelievable commitment and hours he put in throughout our payroll crisis. I can say that I don't know firsthand. I don't know firsthand because I wasn't there. The stress, you had so much on your shoulders, and you came in every day and did everything we possibly could to resolve the problems as quickly as possible. I know how hard it was, and I just want to acknowledge that work. I'm so excited to hear you moving into principalship again, because I know that that's the work that really drives you and makes you happy. So I just wanted to acknowledge your leadership and the hard work over the last many months, particularly in managing the payroll crisis. So thank you, Terry. And to Amy, I want to say I have a child at King, so I look forward to hearing the inside scoop from her and to seeing you in the halls of King as well.
Beautiful. Anybody else? Okay. So I'm going to move now into my remarks. Yeah, so much to celebrate. And Terry, I'm so glad that we get to keep you. Thank you. So continuing along the celebration theme for right now, it's June, which means it's Pride Month, which is so exciting. As a child of lesbian moms and gay dads, first time I've said that in public, into the public record. This month has always been a month of belonging and celebration for me. And I'm just so excited that I get to celebrate it with PPS this year. We decorate a bus every year in the Pride Parade on June 17th this year. We'll meet around noon to decorate the bus, and then we all march together. And so this is an invitation for anyone in the community to join us, especially board members. Come get on the bus. And then also Juneteenth is this month and will happen before our next meeting. And there are several events happening across the state that I encourage you to take part in and learn more about the history of this event. The one I'll be going to is the State of Black Maine Symposium at USM on June 19th. So please, I encourage you to do some learning. And then so back to Dr. Scallon now. I know the order of things are a little wonky tonight, but I think I wanted to just spend a few more beats talking about him because we are so excited to get his leadership here in Portland. So the first time we met Dr. Scallon, we knew that he embodied the skills needed to move our district forward. Over the course of the interview process, which was over several months, the board and search committee spent hours with Ryan understanding his commitment to equity, his demonstrated success in building sustainable systems and operations, and his deep and sustained investment in the staff and educators around him. Ryan is a deep listener, collaborative in nature, humble, as you saw tonight, and the bulk of his career has been in schools where the majority of students have been historically excluded. In addition to having experience as a teacher, principal, and an administrator, as he mentioned, Ryan is also a parent of 3 kiddos and brings all of these perspectives to the role. It is such a fitting combination for our district. Over these last few weeks, it has been exciting to hear the observations Ryan has about our district and is already forming a strong vision for how we continue to move the Portland Promise forward. Ryan is going to be here in Portland again from June 23rd to 27th. He'll be attending several retreats with staff, and we are also hoping to create at least one community event. So while he's here, so more members of the community can meet him and start to know his strengths. So many people in our community participated to get us to this point, and I and the board are incredibly grateful. Just in the final interviews alone, we had over 60 people give their time to meet with candidates and over 40 people submit questions for our candidates. The search committee also put in a tremendous amount of time and energy and passion and dedication. And I really want to thank my co-chair, Betsy Paz-Giamessi, who provided essential insight and leadership to get this process to the finish line. So I'm so incredibly thankful to everyone that helped us. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our other tremendous finalist, Eric Moore. When I spoke to Eric last week, I both thanked him for being part of our process, but also felt the need to apologize on behalf of many in our community who, rather than focus on his amazing accomplishments and strengths, focused instead on rumors, partial information, and narratives that were unhelpful and unfair to both him and the process. Eric worked closely with the board and Alma Advisory Group every step of the way to provide more information, access to personnel records, many references, all to ensure that we could determine every negative word about him was absolutely unfounded. It was incredibly hard and disappointing to see our community welcome a leader of color in this way. As a district committed to equity, I hope that we can use this experience as a point of reflection, one to learn from, and to help us realize that we really have a long way to go. One last thought, and then I will just open it up to board members for any thoughts or things that they wanted to say about the superintendent process. But this is just a reminder that we have a vote on June 13th that is very important. So we need everyone to show up to the polls and vote yes on the budget to ensure that it passes so that we can set up our schools for success this year. And with that, I'll open it up to anybody else that might have a thought that they wanted to share. Board Member Victor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take a moment to echo your sentiment about Dr. Moore. I want to publicly thank Eric Moore for his deep engagement in our interview process. Dr. Moore brought incredible strengths as a data-driven systems leader who truly understands how to elevate the needs of Black and Brown students. I was incredibly disappointed by our community's response to Dr. Moore, including the false rumors and accusations about him, which I believe stemmed from his work dismantling systems and structures that perpetuated racism in the Minneapolis public schools and are similar to the structures and systems we have in place here in Portland. And also the fact that he's a very accomplished Black man. I want to apologize to Dr. Moore, but I am excited now that I know who he is and to be able to continue to follow his important work. And I wish him the very best.
Thank you, Board Member Victor. Would anyone else like to comment? All right. Then I'm going to turn it over to the report of the student. Go ahead, Kaden.
All right. Good evening. First and foremost, happy Pride. I was so excited to get this from Bear earlier. I will be there. I hope to see a lot of you there too. June is one of the most exciting months at Portland High, and there's a lot to look forward to. There are now only 2 weeks left of the school year, and for the seniors, graduation is somehow tomorrow. But before looking ahead to June, there was a lot that happened in May. Between athletics, AP exams, concerts, ceremonies, state testing, club outings, student council elections, fundraisers, and preparing for final projects and assessments, calling the month of May hectic might be a bit of an understatement. May 1st marked the deadline for seniors to make their deposits at the colleges they plan to attend next year. Some of the colleges the PHS class of 2023 will be attending include SMCC, USM, Bowdoin, Colby, Bates, Northwestern, American, Stanford, St. Joseph's, Bard, Vassar, Drexel, Barnard, and UMaine, just to name a few. Following the onslaught of AP exams in the first 2 weeks of May, PHS musicians regrouped on the 16th for the final concert of the year, which consisted of epic pieces from the orchestra, band, and chorus, and even some crossover with the PHS Jazz Band playing along as the chorus sang Fly Me to the Moon. Last Wednesday, the class of 2025 executive board organized a fundraiser at Gelato Fiasco, fully decked with celebrity scoopers Miss Hassan and the iconic Mr. Rolfe. If you happen to remember my mention of the student versus teacher basketball game in my last report, Mr. Rolfe scored the buzzer beater that gave the teachers the win. This past Friday, senior farewell was held in the gymnasium as an opportunity for the rest of the student body to give a final send-off to the graduating seniors and for scholarship recipients to be recognized. One of the most emotional scholarships was delivered by the daughter of Miss Bernard, a longtime chemistry teacher at Portland whose passing last summer left an unfillable hole in the fabric of Portland High. This first Donna Bernard Memorial Scholarship was especially emotional due to the fact that these seniors were the last class to have Miss Bernard as a teacher. With this scholarship, however, Miss Bernard's memory will live on at Portland High School, long after this graduation and the many more to come. Just this past Saturday, the PHS boys and girls outdoor track teams competed at the state championships. This season, the team set numerous school records, and the girls' third place finish at states represents their best showing since 1991. And that brings us to the present, a crazy, bittersweet time of year full of optimism and excitement. Tomorrow, we send off our friends, mentors, and role models into the unknown as the rest of us scramble to complete end-of-year assignments and prepare for finals. Here's wishing every PHS student or soon-to-be graduate the best of luck, whether it be in college in the fall or on a test next week. That concludes my report.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Beautiful. And now Superintendent's remarks.
Great. Thank you, Caden, for that report. So good evening, everybody, board members, staff, and community. Want to share our excitement and welcome for Dr. Scallon to join the district as our next superintendent. We've enjoyed meeting him initially over the through the interview process, and recently over these past few weeks. And are confident he brings forward the skills, knowledge, and mindset to help us deliver on the goals of the Portland Promise. And personally, I'm looking forward to him joining the team and supporting his transition into the system as we move forward into the coming school year. So welcome, Dr. Scallon. In related news, as Chair Lentz acknowledged earlier, we wanted to share tonight, that we are making some shifts to how the district leadership structure is organized and the appointments to some of those roles. So the most change is happening within the teaching and learning division, where we're integrating the academic and school management functions by establishing an executive director of elementary schools and an executive director of secondary schools who will provide direct coaching and support to schools within their portfolio. I'm very excited to share that Dr. Abdullahi Ahmed will be stepping into the role of the Executive Director of Secondary Schools. So thank you, Dr. Ahmed. The Executive Director of Elementary Schools is open, and we're currently recruiting for that position. Both roles will report to the Deputy Superintendent, which, I am excited to step into that role to support them and to also oversee the academic team to ensure the integration of support to advance our district's teaching and learning priorities. We are finalizing some adjustments to the academic team as well to more coherently align support to the elementary and secondary levels. And these changes are designed to increase the support and accountability for schools and school leaders and to integrate the academic team more deeply to improve the implementation of our priorities and accelerate outcomes for our most underserved student groups. In addition, we are also making some adjustments to the business and operation units based on learnings from this past year. We will combine the diversity and equity and belonging team with the HR operations team to form an Office of People and Diversity. We are very excited that Barrett Wilkinson will be serving as the leader of this department. So thank you, Barrett. We are also reestablishing our finance team as a direct report to the superintendent, which will include the budget, accounting, and payroll functions, and will be led by an executive director of finance. So again, this is a position that we're currently in recruitment for. And finally, with the appointment of Dr. Young to the Talbot Community Principalship, it means that our operations unit will be looking for a new executive director of operations. And that operations unit moving forward into next year will consist of the facilities, transportation, food services, and IT departments. And of course, Dr. Valenzuela will continue to serve as our executive director of communications and community partnerships. So let's give a round of applause for Grace. For the open positions, collaborating with our incoming superintendent, Dr. Scallon, on the hiring for those direct report roles to him. And overall, we believe that these changes will improve our district functionality and allow us to focus on the core work of teaching and learning and the accomplishment of our Portland Promise goals. So in addition to these district leadership moves, we wanted to highlight a couple of great recent school events. This past Thursday, East End Community School recognized a longtime crossing guard, Danny Lowe, with a special day called Danny Day. Danny has served the students of East End as a crossing guard for 12 years, including 9 at the same intersection. It was the second annual Danny Day, and the students and staff decorated the intersection and made cards and necklaces for him. So we thank Danny for his commitment to our community. Also last Thursday, the Portland Fire Department visited Rowe Elementary School to recognize a 3rd grade student who unfortunately has had to call 911 multiple times over the past few years for support for his mother, who suffers from serious seizures. The fire department came to Rowe School with a big fire truck to present the student with a certificate recognizing their bravery and responsibility. So thanks to the fire department for their recognition of this student and his bravery and responsibility. So with that, I'll turn it over to Malia to finish our report.
Awesome. Well, speaking of events devoted to recognition, as has been mentioned, we're excited to be in graduation week for Portland, Deering, and Casco Bay. Portland High's graduation ceremony is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Deering is on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. and Casco is also on Thursday at 6 p.m. All the ceremonies are at Merrill Auditorium, and we hope to see many of you there to celebrate our graduates and to honor all of the educators and family and friends who supported them to get to this huge milestone in their lives. As we reach these end-of-year milestones, we turn our attention to the summer, and we wanted to give a brief update on how things are shaping up for our scaled-down summer program. As you recall, we reduced our budget for this summer during our budgeting process. This was partly driven by the need to find cost savings, but you may also recall that we shared last fall that we're not well positioned to run summer at the scale we have for the past 2 summers, given the level of operational lift required and the staffing capacity needed. So while we're scaling the program back for this summer, we are still excited about what we have planned. So in K through 8, we're partnering with community organizations to provide full day, full week programming for elementary students and week-long camp-like experiences for middle school students, plus academic tutoring in language and math. In particular, we're prioritizing recruitment enrollment for our McKinney-Vento students. So far, we've had 480 applications for the 240 spots with LearningWorks. We have 128 applications for the 165 slots at the Boys and Girls Club and 35 applications for the 40 slots available with Rec. We have 60 tutoring slots for middle schoolers and 54 applications thus far, and we're still in the process of enrolling students. Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Jesse Robinson, jumped in to take the lead on planning for the K-8 programming, despite this not being initially on her plate to do. And when asked what she is most excited about for the coming summer, she highlighted the Boys and Girls Club partnership because they will serve our students furthest from opportunity while offering language tutoring to many of these students through a shared tutoring partnership with many of our ESOL teachers. She also noted the high quality math tutoring where students that need additional math support will get 32 additional hours of one-on-one math tutoring this summer. We will continue to offer ESY, which is our extended school year program for students on IEPs, as we are obligated to do. Most students with IEPs do not require ESY services. This year, 177 students are eligible out of about 1,150 students with IEPs, and we have 113 of those students enrolled so far. And then finally, we will build upon the successful high school intensive model at all 3 high schools, and we'll be running a summer bridge program for incoming freshmen at all 3 of our high schools. We're excited about expanding this model to our 2 comprehensive high schools this year, and want to note that this collaborative work came out of the 9th grade team that had been working together across our high schools all year, led by Director of Secondary Access and Outcomes, Pamela Atunu. Casco is inviting all 100 incoming freshmen to participate, and both Deering and Portland are taking a more targeted approach and are inviting about 40 students each to participate at the end of the summer. Recruitment for the high school intensives or credit recovery options ranges from 70 to 185 students per school, and Deering and Portland will be offering a language intensive in lieu of the Language Academy this year. We also want to remind everyone, like Chair Lentz, to please vote on the school budget. You can do that via absentee ballot now or on Tuesday, June 13th. It's critical that we pass our budget to ensure our educators are set up for success. And so thank you so much for your support in getting out to do that. And then finally, we also wanted to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. Families consistently cite our district's diversity and commitment to ensuring a welcoming and affirming environment for all of our students as a reason they love the Portland Public Schools. In this spirit, we want to acknowledge the LGBTQ plus students and staff who are in our community and say that we are firmly committed to ensuring our schools are safe, welcoming, and affirming of who you are. All staff, students, and families are welcome to march with us, as Chair Lentz mentioned, at the Portland Pride Parade on June 17th. So we'll be lining up at noon and the parade starts at 1, and we really hope to see lots of you there. And that's all for today.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bando? Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a follow-up on for the summer school. I just need a few details. If you cannot do it now, I can just follow up with you. So for the academic tutoring, I'm kind of really interested the recruitment for the students will happen, and if it's gonna be a learning assessment first, aligning with the classroom teacher's needs for that specific student, and also if it's gonna be just mathematics or other subjects as well.
I mean, Jesse's here this evening and we could do a presentation on summer. I just wanted to give you a little teaser because we haven't talked about it recently. And so I could pull something like that together, probably not for next meeting, but certainly in August. But to answer your specific question, it's for language for ELA and math. And then you asked about if we're doing some sort of diagnostic assessment or aligning it. Yeah, I mean, I think that, do you want to say something on that, Jesse, quickly? Come on down. This is Jessie Robinson, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
So for the language tutoring program that's at the Boys and Girls Club, that's going to be an intensive English language development program for students that are new arrivals. They have their own brain gain program for kids that have more language development. But they didn't really have the expertise to support those students that are newcomers. And so that's why we're partnering together to provide that sort of additional programming for those students in particular, mostly who are living at the expo right now in the shelter. And then the math tutoring is just for mathematics, not for reading.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Board Member Figdor.
I don't have a question for the interim superintendents, but I just wanted to say, as a gay member of the school board, that I need to acknowledge how the political climate has made life as a queer person so much harder for many of our students right now. People may know, but there have been more than 520 bills introduced in state legislatures across the country, including in Maine, to deny queer people, trans people, their humanity, as well as their rights and freedom. And so I hope everyone will come together and celebrate Pride and also fight back and do the hard work to ensure that our students do, in fact, have their full rights, as well as feel like they belong in our schools.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to move us to the report of the secretary. And board, tonight, we're just going to do a consent method on the vote, on the notes, on the minutes, instead of doing a roll call. So are there any corrections on the notes from May 16th, 2023? Okay, I don't see any corrections. Then the minutes are going to be approved as attached in the agenda. So we don't have to have a vote. Great. And now we're going to move on to the consent items.
Great. Under board policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods of significant value and of symbolic importance. As required by policy, all of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying this item. Our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. So with that, I would like to thank the following contributors to the Portland Public Schools. First, for the Gerald E. Talbot Community School, who received donations from the following individuals in support of their summer learning dinner. Horace Mann of Falmouth and Wayside Food Programs of Portland. And then Portland High School received Hannaford gift cards to support their food pantry from April and Dennis Noonan of Portland. Thank you all for your support, and we're very grateful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Superintendent Townsend. And now we're going to move to the board focus tonight, which is going to be on literacy for equity, vision, and curriculum.
Great. And I'll just introduce the team that's here to speak on that. So I think it's really cool that everyone's talking about how to teach reading. I don't know if you've known this, but it's very much in mainstream media this day. People are talking about the science of reading and the reading wars. And so from this, we've started to get a lot of questions from parents in the community wanting to know, what are we doing? Are we adhering to what is referred to as the science of reading? And so we wanted to talk about it with the board and with the community and give you all an update on the work that's been happening in our literacy realm. Early on in the Portland Promise, we identified the need to adopt a systematic phonics curriculum, which is aligned to the science of reading. And we're going to talk about it tonight as the foundational school skills work. At that time, we did not have a phonics curriculum in the district. Some schools were using intervention tools, and everybody was using kind of a mix of strategies, and there was definitely nothing coherent and systematic across the system. So 5 years ago, our literacy coaches collaborated to identify curricular tools for phonics instruction, and we have been implementing those since. After that initial work, we launched the ELA vertical team, and together the teachers, coaches, and administrators on the team co-constructed what we now refer to as our Literacy for Equity vision, which you're going to hear a little bit more about this evening. And so now that we have that vision, we use that to evaluate our, materials, our professional development, our structures, and we identified the need to evolve the instructional materials we're using to ensure that we're providing our educators with, and ultimately our students with, curriculum tools that are in fact aligned to this vision, which is research-based and formed from our educators' best practices. So this evening, I'm introducing once again to the mic, Jessie Robinson, who's our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Cindy Sewell, who is our literacy teacher leader and literacy coordinator, former, actually lots of teachers of the year up here. And then I think Joshua Chard is here as well, who's going to share some perspective about his experience as a teacher, starting to work with some of these tools. So I will pass it off to the three of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much and good evening. We're going to be starting to talk about our priority one, which is strengthening core instruction. And like Malia said, really kind of talking about the strategy and the journey that we've been through to get to where we are right now through collaboration with educators within our system. So the flow is that we're going to be doing some framing, looking at some data that's informed our decisions, doing a deep dive into the ELA curriculum adoption process, hearing from some schools, and then looking just kind of a quick overview of what implementation might look like. So just a reminder, our priority one is strengthening core instruction, and our theory of action is something like this. If all students get exposed to relevant, engaging grade level learning with appropriate supports and scaffolds, they are more likely to master grade level content. Seems pretty, follows some logic there. And then if they're not exposed to that, right, if they're pulled out or they're excluded for some reason, or the tasks actually don't align, then they're less likely to master grade level standards. So this is a really key element of our academic priority to ensure that all students can achieve at high levels. Then related to that, we have three strategies. So the first one is ensuring that educators have really high quality instructional materials so that they can ensure that all students have access to that grade level learning. And then also that we're building their competencies to sort of enact those visions that Malia mentioned that I'm going to go into in a minute. And finally, that we're disrupting and replacing structures that exist disrupting and replacing structures that are barriers to equitable instruction. So just to kind of take you back a little bit, we started, as Malia mentioned, with our instructional visions. And we have, because as she mentioned, we started without really a clear collective understanding of what we want to see in classrooms. So we started with the math instructional vision, and we said, okay, when we walk into a math class, what do we want to see? What do we want it to feel like? How will we know that we've done our job to collectively, again, have a math class where all students can be successful? And so we started with the math vision, and then we went through with all of the other content visions. And so for each of those content areas, we have some guidance for teachers saying like, okay, if you're new to the district, what does this look like in your classroom? So then when we stepped back from these, in the next slide, we were able to see, okay, what are the commonalities amongst all of these? And so across the board, our instructional vision has these 7 elements. 1, inclusive classroom environment, where all students belong. Active learning, where students are really actively participating in their learning. High expectations, where all students can be successful. Culturally responsive teaching, where students see themselves in the curriculum. Assets-based approach, where they are, we're looking at students from an asset-based lens, not in a deficit-based way, and a team approach where we're working together collaboratively. And finally, assessments for learning, which is really about ensuring that we're understanding students' thinking along the way. So after we did that, we were then able to say, okay, what does that mean for the curriculum that's in front of us? And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about in a minute, about what we chose based on those visions. Before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the research and data that went into the decision around choosing a new literacy curriculum for our elementary schools and middle schools. So first, I'm going to talk about the NAEP data, which is really the national story. So across the nation, we've seen pretty much stagnant results in reading proficiency over time. So this shows both 4th grade and 8th grade hovering just above 30%, which is pretty staggering. Then when you look at our own data, and again, just a reminder that we've had different state assessments over time, and so it's really difficult to actually draw conclusions, but I'm going to show you the NWEA, which is an assessment that we have given over time, even though not in all of our schools every year. But still, when you look at this data, next slide, you can see a similar story around stagnant results. And really, in the aggregate, students are below the national norm. And then when you look at it by race, you'll see large gaps between our Black students and our white students. This is at elementary school, and then again in middle school. And in this slide in particular, you can see that Black students in 7th and 8th grade are scoring on average below 6th grade norms. So, you know, I'm not going to go into the causes of this, and there are many, but we do believe that having a strong core instruction where all students have access to grade level content that is, again, follows that instructional vision of engagement and belonging really can help us improve. So I'm now going to introduce, turn things over to Cindy Sewell. And as Malia mentioned, she was the literacy coach at Talbot, and before that she was Maine State Teacher of the Year. And she brings a huge passion for this work, as well as some serious literacy chops.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to review some research. So educational research is always emerging with just incredible information for us to think about as we're paving a path forward for our learners. And one of the studies that, as Jessie and Malia had mentioned, our visions that we used in this district was by TNTP. It was in 2018. I was a 3rd grade teacher at the time, and I actually remember the presentation about this. It was so powerful. And so TNTP went into some schools and looked really closely to figure out how can so many students be graduating from high school unprepared to meet their goals for college and careers. And I think that's a question that we continue to ask today. So what they found was these incredible themes. So the first theme is 94% of students aspire to attend college. Students have dreams and plans. But then on the flip side of that, when they looked at what was happening in schools, 71% of the students succeeded on their assignments in school, but only 17% of those reflected grade level standards. So if students are spending most of their time in school without access to these 4 key resources, you can imagine why that might be, that the 94% isn't being able to achieve that dream. So thinking about grade appropriate assignments, strong instruction, deep engagement, and teachers who hold high expectations. These are things that we held close to us as we were creating our visions. And then students of color, those from low-income families, English language learners, multilingual learners, and students with unique learning abilities have even less access to those resources. And so the other really nice thing that the study showed is that if you give greater access to these 4 resources, it makes a huge difference on student achievement, particularly for those who start the school a year behind. And so another really incredible piece of research came from Hollis Scarborough. This is Scarborough's reading rope. It's something that I think is just amazing because it demonstrates in a framework how complex reading is. So these are things that readers need to do all at once. So there's all those skills under language comprehension, just like background knowledge, vocabulary, they're all listed there. And at the same time, there needs to be word recognition happening. And so each of the sides of that rope need to weave together for skilled and fluent reading, where readers can read and understand and take that information and be change makers in the world. So that's another piece of research that we used in this process. And so when we were looking at that Scarborough's reading rope, the word recognition strand, we didn't have anything to collect data on how our students were doing with that specifically. So the district adopted the Universal Early Bird Screener, and you can see a little picture. There's Pip, the little narrator of the video. It's fun and easy to use. It's engaging. Kids go on, they have a game board, they get to choose, and it's comprehension. So while these students are just making their way through the game board, it's assessing critical components of early reading. And it identifies students at risk for dyslexia, as well as for risk of potential word reading. It's research-based, scientifically tested, and it came from out of Boston Children's Hospital in partnership with researchers and brain scientists from the Florida Center for Reading Research. So this is a data slide that I made. I love data, but we don't have a data person in the district. So I did my very best, and I'm going to explain it to you. So the yellow is the fall, and the green is the spring. And what you're looking at is how the percentiles changed. So in the fall to spring, we decreased the first to the 20th percentile for letter names by 18%. Pretty good. and then on the above benchmark, we want that number to go up, and it did by 33%. So that's a student being able to identify the names of a letter in kindergarten. And then the next side is letter sounds. So look at it the same way. We decreased 18% and increased 19%. So that's letter names and letter sounds. So students seeing a letter and being able to identify. And then blending, that is when you hear the sounds and you're able to put them together. So if I said k, t, the student will be able to think and say cat. And so it's really important that students here are able to do that phoneme work before they apply it to graphemes. And we rock that. So we implemented Hegarty this year. It's a new because we recognized that was missing. And we decreased that first to 20th percentile by 43%, y'all. Look at our amazing educators. So that was awesome. And then the increase above benchmark was by 33%. So that's incredible data. So here's the key to code-based systematic instruction. Students need to be able to apply the code that they've learned to nonsense words. So words like FEG, FEG, BIZ, biz, and be able to automatically read that. And this is where our data is showing that we need to improve. Non-word reading, 43% of our kindergartners were in the first to 20th percentile. And 43 were above. So there's a big divide there, 14% in the middle, and that's kindergarten. So next slide. And so this is grade 1 non-word reading. And you can see that we're hovering still in that we've made improvements, but we're still hovering there. And so Jesse's going to talk later, and Malia already referred to it about that systematic phonics. So we've been using Haggerty for phonemic awareness, which is the sounds, TC phonics for the graph, bringing the sounds to the grapheme, the print, and then lively letters for the letter names. And so 3 different things. And so that's why looking towards one program was really important, because we knew what we needed to do, but we're trying to improve the tools we have to do that. And so recognizing again that our word recognition side, we had students who had incredible gaps. And so we adopted Lexia Core 5, which is an online tool that provides students with direct instruction on the foundational skills, but also provides an incredible amount of information to the teacher to then small group and provide direct instruction. And you can see on the right, it shows like below, the gray is below grade level material, and that's all aligned to the standards. The lighter blue is in grade level material, and the darker blue is above grade level material. And you can see how in 3rd grade, we moved 49% because those students didn't have quite as far to go as our 5th graders, who we increased by 17%. But I also think it's pretty incredible how many students moved into that above grade level material. And the teachers have done an amazing job incentivizing kids. Kids get excited about it. One of the literacy coaches tells me that she's walking down the hall and they're like, I did 4 units and I did this great thing. And can I ring the bell of success? That's at Talbot. They have a little bell that they get to ring when they pass the skill level. And so the kids are really enjoying it. So, and we're also, it was in the budget this year for Lexia Power Up, which is grades 6 through 8, because of the success that we've had here to help fill those gaps. And then finally, I'm sure many of you have heard of or listened to maybe the Sold a Story podcast. Many of our educators have as well. And this really just highlights, we had already figured out that we were making a shift from balanced reading into the science of reading. And this slide just illustrates the ways that we're shifting from not having a systematic phonics instruction to having that, to stepping away from only having students in level text and using the 3 cueing system to the use of decodable texts with word patterns already taught. And then also providing all students with access to complex text. And then reading and writing, we're taught in complete isolation and we're very skill focused. And now we're looking to integrate that approach to learning with relevant and engaging content about the world with an application focus. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to get to the big reveal soon, I promise you. Okay, so I'm going to take you quickly on a little curriculum journey. I know there's a lot of framing here. There's like the foundational skills and the comprehension, and we're going to bring it all together. Okay, so the next slide is going deep into this literacy vision. So we talked about that we had visions for every single one of our content areas based on this idea of strengthening core instruction. So this is our literacy vision. And you'll see some of the things that Cindy talked about echoed here. Again, this was created with educators across the district, teachers, coaches, principals, some students, interviews that we did of students. And also based on research. So engagement and inquiry. So students bring their curiosity, that idea of grade level complex texts, right? So all students are having access to grade level content. Students are seeing their identities in the curriculum, windows and mirrors. Does that ring a bell for anyone? Great. And then this idea of deepening their skills around speaking, writing, reading, and listening. That includes foundational skills, right? How do you crack the code to be able to read? So that's the vision. And then, and just a quick deep dive into kind of how this will play out. We have a unit that does this already. So the 3rd grade unit is both life science and Wabanaki studies. It introduces students to the history of the Presumpscot River and the first indigenous inhabitants who have been there 12,000 years ago. So that sort of windows and mirrors piece around learning about other cultures and other peoples. students are asking questions about dams, which is the inquiry piece. They're doing complex text reading, which is the grade level aspect of it. And they're learning how to write opinion pieces, which is that skill piece that we talked about. So interdisciplinarily bringing knowledge of science and social studies together, doing experiential learning, which, we're hoping to do more of across the whole district through field-based work. And we've already started it with this unit this year. So this is kind of like the culmination of what that vision looks like. Okay, so that's kind of the ideal. And then we wanted to sort of look at our current state. Where are we now and where do we want to go? And Cindy talked about the different tools we had for foundational skills, Lively Letters, TC Phonics, and Heggerty. We also had different schools using different curricula at different schools. So we had Teachers College units of study in many of our elementary schools. We had EL, we had IB, and then we also were using other materials like Fountas and Pinnell, which we've learned a lot about through this science of reading process. And we really wanted something that was more coherent, cohesive, that was a reflection of that vision that we had, and could also work in an interdisciplinary way with our science and social studies. Okay, so then we went through a process. K through 5, we looked at the data, we established criteria, we did reviews of the curriculum with the curriculum team and the admin team, and looked at pros and cons with teachers, and then we collaboratively chose a curriculum and created an implementation plan. All right, here's the big reveal. Get excited. So for remembering back to the Scarborough's reading rope, we have the language comprehension. So we've chosen the EL education ELA curriculum. That's for K through 8. We've already been adopting one of the modules or units this year in middle school. And we're going to hear from some schools that have been piloting it. And we also have a school in the district that has been using these materials for a very long time, which is Presumpscot. And we're going to bring Angie up in a minute to talk about that. And then for foundational skills, we're going to use CKLA, which is a really, it's a research-based program for the foundational skills. On the next slide, I'm actually going to say a tiny bit more about that one. So it's hyper aligned to the science of reading. Like, these people really know their stuff. It's user-friendly for teachers. It's super engaging for kids. Lyseth piloted it, and I got to see it in action in every single class. Every single kid was engaged and learning and, being agents of their own learning. And teachers reflected back that kids saw themselves as readers. And that was the part that made me weep and be super excited. And it's very explicit and systematic. And then the EL education ELA curriculum, which again is K through 8. It has this deep understanding of the how to teach knowledge and skills to students. So speaking, listening, reading, and writing, but it also has this piece around character. And so we're really thinking about how it can weave into the work that we do with SEL, and also has this other element that's really cool around high quality work. And you'll see those elements at the schools that have the EL model, like Casco and King, bring in that high quality work piece. And so it'd be great to build on that strength there as well. Okay, so we'd like to hear from the schools a little bit. So Angie Taylor is the principal at Presumpscot. They've been doing EL for a long time. And she's, I believe, on Zoom. She's there.
I'm here. Can everyone hear me? Yep,
Hi,
I'm here.
Angie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to talk about EL. It's pretty exciting. So I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to start my clock. Here we go. I'm not going to, I had a piece already written, but it feels like everyone said all those things. So I'm going to actually do it more in a way about, like, it's fun. It's engaging, right? With the new mods, I think it's going to represent our community better. It takes, social studies, science, reading, writing, and it integrates it in a way that, look at these pictures. It speaks to it, right? Kids get excited from K when they start to think about toys, to, even sad, right? When they start to look at human rights issues in 5th grade and they tackle those really, really hard concepts. But it really, I think because of the integration and because it's more hands-on or it's expeditionary, that kids engage differently with the curriculum. I have yet to see an expedition that I've been a part of where a kid is sad. If you can go to the next slide, that would be great. It does all the things people already said, so I'm not going to be redundant, right? Close reading, complex text, student engagement, assessments. The discussion protocol that I want to highlight, I have worked in high school mostly. I'm almost at half of the same for elementary. The Presenscott Elementary kids can engage in discussions as good as any high school student I've worked with because of these protocols. It's incredible the way they can make a claim statement, support it with evidence, and talk about topics that are really beyond their years. Can you go to the next slide? And the other cool part is, as part of the mods, is we invite experts into our building. And we've really worked hard recently to bring experts into our building that represent our community. And again, it just allows them to engage with someone, and it might make them think, oh my gosh, I can be a scientist, or oh my gosh, I can be, a writer, or oh my, I could do this. And I think that's like so important to the elementary group. And do I have one more slide? And so just to reinforce, so Presenscott's been doing this for a while. We did revise some of our units when I came on board because there were some books and content areas that felt not representing our community. But the one thing I do want to highlight, and I want to be careful because I think data is like sometimes, because we don't know what's going to happen a year from now, right? But I will celebrate the fact that over 80% of our students in 5th grade are reading at grade level. That we have closed the sort of the gap, and the ones who are not reading at grade level are the ones that are new to Maine that have arrived at our school in the past year and a half, and we hope engaging this curriculum will get them there faster. So just a celebration, and I think that EL curriculum is not the answer, but it is a way to get kids more engaged in the curriculum. I'll stop because I'm at 3.
Thank you, Angie. It was, we had a school visit, and it was incredible to have so many members from our community, our leadership members and other teachers observe the brilliance that's happening with the educators there and the ways that they are just the talk that the students have, the ability to talk about is really incredible. So next we're going to hear from East End Community School from Mr. Joshua Chard. And he actually, when I first started my career, I was at Talbot and I was a special educator, and I really learned all my best practices from being a special educator in Joshua's classroom. And a big part of my process of becoming Maine Teacher of the Year was reflecting. And there was a lot of moments where I looked back and knew that what I had learned, what came from Joshua's classroom. He's incredible. He creates a community where all students feel welcome. And so when I had the opportunity for a classroom to pilot some of the materials, the EL materials, I went to Joshua and asked him. And so he's going to share those experiences. And for those of you who don't know, he is also this year's Cumberland County Teacher of the Year. So.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for giving me a chance to speak. But first of all, I have to say, or Dr. Ahmed will be really mad at me, I'm also the drama director at Deering High School. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. I'm not talking about data tonight. I'm not looking at this through this lens. I jumped into this spring and taught the first module in the 2nd grade EL literacy program. And it really was jumping in. A box of items arrived at my school, and I read the first bunch of pages, and then I jumped in with my students. And so I'm going to be talking more about my emotional reaction to it. And what I would say is I quickly discovered that the program is culturally responsive, that students are able to look at the materials that have been selected and see themselves reflected in those materials. And my understanding is that that is being further developed in the program, that EL has determined that there's more work to be done in that area. But the materials were exciting and engaging to my students because they saw all kinds of children being represented in what they were reading. They were able to, the social emotional connection, where they were able to dig into their feelings and relate their feelings to the characters that they were encountering in the mentor text, the anchor text that we were using, was powerful. One small story, I have a student, this student may struggle with self-regulation sometimes, all the time. And I was teaching one of the lessons, and as per usual, this student was crawling and rolling. I also knew was listening to everything I was saying. And when it came time to talk about the message, the author's message in the story, he looked at me and he said, I think that this story, this was the dot. I think this story means that everybody can be an inspiration to somebody else. I then fell out of my chair. That night, I actually had my interview for Teacher of the Year, and I said, today, I wasn't the best teacher in my classroom. Today, one of my students was the best teacher in the classroom. This first module reflects on schools around the world, and a student observed that schools don't have to be in fancy buildings. Schools are wherever learning is happening. And when we looked at The Invisible Boy, which is a story about a boy who doesn't feel seen and is therefore invisible, students without any prompting were able to make the connection that as he talked to other students and as other students started to have relationships with him, he started to have color in his presentation and he was no longer invisible. These were all, none of this, I'm not a stand and deliver kind of teacher. This was all of them figuring this out with some guiding questions and some gentle nudging. I am no expert on this program. I have had no training on the program, but I will say this. I will say that my students were engaged. My students were thinking. My students were engaging in discourse with one another and excited about their insights and what they were learning and what they were seeing in these books. And it was really exciting not to have Ramona Quimby or Amber Brown or Junie B. Jones in the room or a talking mouse. I think all of these are extreme benefits of the program, and I'm really excited to dig deeper and grow as a teacher and become a better literacy teacher as a result of adopting this program. Thank you.
Awesome. So just one little note about implementation, because I bet a lot of you are thinking, wow, this seems like a lot of change in the time that it's been hard to be an educator in the last few years. And so what we've done is really listen to teachers, to educators, to principals. This is a graphic that we've been using around implementation. So this is this year, 22, 23. By 27, 28, that's 5 years from now, we will have adopted this curriculum as well as our science and foundational skills and Wabanaki studies. And, we're already fully implemented with math. So schools have we've provided the conditions and the resources and the professional development. And schools have the autonomy and the agency to listen to their educators and get there in a way that works for them. And so on the next slide, you'll see we have listened a lot to teachers around what they need to do this successfully. One is professional development. I'm sorry you didn't have training, Joshua, on that beforehand.
I didn't expect it.
But that will happen this summer and throughout the year. And one big theme was just time. People, if they're implementing next year, really need time to plan. And so as a collective admin team, we've carved out, 2 Wednesdays a month for something we're calling facilitated planning, where teachers have time to plan in their teams with their ESOL educator and their special educator and in a grade level team, and really understand the curriculum and be able to teach it in a way where they're not feeling rushed and they really can slow down and understand it. So that's a real huge priority for us in terms of support and coordinating that. We're also kind of rearranging I won't go into the details, but rearranging our PD calendar so that ESOL and special educators can be at the table, because while we're holding the bar really high for all students, we need to provide scaffolds and supports for all students to get there. And that requires collaboration and working together. And finally, coaches and teaching strategists are going to get a lot of support to work side by side with teachers in this process, planning with them, co-teaching with them, like really being there side by side to support them in this work. So that's it. Do you have any questions for us? We're very excited.
Right. Who's got the questions? Yeah, we're riding.
Thank you, Chair. I am similarly excited. Yeah. And as the mom of elementary school kiddos, just like times 1,000 excited. So excited. So my first question has to do with what just a high level, what the plans are to catch up the kiddos. So as time marches on, you know, like I saw like the CKLA is K through 2. Mm-hmm. What about like the third graders who won't get the benefit of that because they're not going to be in second grade ever again? How are we getting those foundational skills to every kiddo, even if they're beyond that phase when they should, air quotes, should have gotten those skills?
I'll start and then you can fill in if I miss something. So this year we adopted Lexia Core 5, which is an adaptive program for grades 3 through 5, because we knew that those students had gaps, largely because of the pandemic, but also some of the things that we mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so that program teaches what students need on grade level, but it also will adjust. And if a student needs something that's a K skill, it'll give them that K skill. It's also, it allows teachers to pull small groups and do, sort of like targeted skill building around those areas. Anything else to add?
And the CKLA skills, one of the really qualities that we loved about it was that the team was also having the same question, and they have a 3 through 5 intervention toolkit that you can go in, and it will provide you information about specifically where you need to go and point you to that curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so that actually will help K through 5 students. And I've already started thinking, how can we use that middle school too?
Super. Let's see. My next question, if I could, Joshua, can I ask you a question? I really loved the summary that you gave us of your experience with the ELA. It sounds amazing. And I noticed that thematically, I mean, I know it was a brief bit of time with it, but it sounded like most of what you were reflecting on was comprehension and like great stuff. I'm wondering if you had an opportunity to sort of assess like the mechanics, like the other parts of literacy, the foundational skills, sort of like yes.
So my focus was less on that.
Okay.
Because I was jumping into what is, it is a complex program.
Okay.
When we talk about teachers needing time to work on it, it's not an open the book and read the script kind of program.
Yeah.
And so this year, my work on foundational skills has been mostly the phonemic awareness and phonics that we've adopted, yeah. Which, by the way, has been transformative and life-changing for my students. I'm Gen X. I came up into education during the reading wars. We were prohibited from teaching phonics when I started teaching in Portland Public Schools. It was not allowed.
Yeah.
And that has been transformative. But as far as those pieces of the program, mm-hmm. I was really sort of dipping my toes into the first, second grade module.
Sure.
And I didn't get deeply into those pieces of it.
I think Angie could potentially speak to that a little bit. Do you mind, Angie?
No, I don't mind. So I guess are you talking about like phonics, like reading, or are you talking about writing? I guess I would want clarification.
Either or both.
Okay, cool. How about I do talk about writing? So yeah, I think at every grade level, there's a component of writing. And I think what you mean by that is like what I think about it as providing feedback to students, right? about the mechanics of writing. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, making sure that the curriculum allows students to get those foundational skills that they need so that they can get to the point of reading a story and getting the meaning out of the story.
Yeah. So absolutely, 100%. It starts in K with, right, like I said, the toy unit where they're actually having conversations about it's really the design model, right? And writing about it and talking about it and writing about it and getting feedback about it. And then it travels through, first grade, the pollination unit, right? All the way to, like I said, fifth, really having conversations and engaging writing about human rights issues, which again is a much, harder thing to do. And they would not be able to do that without the foundational stuff that happens in K1, 2, 3, and 4. And the other thing I think I would just add is it was mentioned, we go through a quality of work protocol review every single year where we look at writing K through 5 and we talk about it. And the writing is right. They're showing what they understand about what they've read, what they've learned. So it really does help us take a look at the scope and sequence of, what does it mean to write in K versus 5? I hope I answered that.
Yeah, and I would just add, maybe Jesse or Cindy or Angie, any of you could say this. So just to be clear, in our kind of guidance, we have a certain amount of time that we in our schedules are putting toward the foundational skills. So the CKLA program, and then a certain amount of time that goes through to the literacy block and to the interdisciplinary block. And the foundational skills block is longer in the K through 2 than it is in the 3 through 5. Then within the EL curriculum, I think a lot of what we talk about is where we do that application work, but there's still instruction around the sort of parts of reading. So I don't know if somebody wants to, what's that called? There's a name of that in the curriculum.
So the CKLA is the foundational skills.
Right.
And we're not doing the all block.
Or I'm just talking about in EL curriculum for the other part of Scarborough's.
They do have that, but we're doing CKLA instead of, they have that as well, but we're doing CKLA instead. And there is just a reminder, the Scarborough's rope. It's super helpful for me. So you can see that the literacy block is like that comprehension piece, and the CKLA is the foundational skills. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. 2 more quick questions. In terms of point taken and appreciated about it being like a really complex, this is a lot, and just being sort of mindful of the recurring theme that we've heard about, teachers having so much on their plates and all that. I remember during the budget conversation, there had been talk about taking the garden educators and re-envisioning that model and having them be sort of traveling around to all the elementary schools so that the classroom teachers could then do the work of learning how to do this. And I just wanted to check in on whether that's still the plan and how that's working.
I can share some of the evolution of that. So we're now calling them environmental literacy teachers. I think it's a great name.
Well, and to be clear, it's better reflects what the work is. Yes. I think that people got confused about a garden teacher. And so it's a better name, but it also is more an accurate description of what the substance is. But anyway,
can I just ask a clarifying question on that? Is it in the term did you say environmental literacy?
Environmental literacy.
Yeah. Is that literacy in the sense of like, we want people to be literate about the environment, or literacy books? Like
and literate about the environment. Yeah.
So they're not literacy, like how to read and write.
No.
I could see that being confusing, but I get the, sorry, go ahead.
It's like environmental literacy standards and whatnot, but I think we're trying to get at that.
Well, in this conversation, because I'm also asking about how it layers in with
literacy.
All right, I'm going to let you keep talking.
Okay, great. So it was a great idea to kind of release, 4 teachers to do some planning. When we got into the logistics of that, it was untenable. If you imagine 4 teachers with 100 kids outside on the Reiki playground where there's no space, right? Just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So then we had some different iterations, like this is where the rubber hits the road, the logistics of scheduling and coverage and all of those things. So then we had, anyway, I won't go into the details, but we came up with a plan that was tenable, that we could release teachers, but it was really one planning period in the fall, one planning period in the spring.
Yeah.
It was not a good use of that. And I think Angie brought this up, was like, it wasn't building the capacity of the teachers to then do that themselves. If I can help you recall that sort of interdisciplinary vision that we have, where all of this is interconnected, and it doesn't feel like piecemeal.
Yeah.
We learn social studies here, and then we learn science here, and then we learn this thing over there.
Yeah.
Really bringing it together. This person is going to really work with the teachers and kind of build that muscle around interdisciplinary work, environmental literacy, experiential learning, all together.
That sounds amazing.
And Jesse, I do want to make sure that the board and people understand we didn't drop the prioritization
No,
of
course not.
time.
Yes,
So,
but like we found other ways to do that, I guess is what I would say. Like we know how important it is for teachers to have time to plan, and we have built that into our professional development schedule. I mean, we're really like this is elementary principals understand that this takes a lot of time, and we're going to focus, right? Like in the past, I think we've done a lot of different things. And this plan gives principals the chance to decide, okay, this year we're going to do this and only this. And we're going to spend, I mean, obviously there's other things that come in, but like as a priority, this is going to be our priority. And teachers are going to have the time that they need to do this well.
And we've given release time for the past however many years to support the EL mods as teachers begin to dig in.
And so when Angie says release time, that's like teachers get a day to plan, and we have subs. And so that's something that we're doing as well for each of the modules. So in addition to like the Wednesday planning time, we're going to have time twice a year for teachers who are adopting the modules to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, I don't necessarily expect it to be answered with specificity, but more as a call out for future conversations. The need for strong instruction and deep engagement as two of the 4 key resources. I'm curious about whether those 2 things tie in with recommended class sizes. So I was just thinking about how the deep engagement and the ability to have strong instruction as we look to the future and, things that we might need to do budget-wise, needing to whether to make sure that those 2 things are strong, do we need to be mindful of class size at the elementary level to make sure that those things are all set?
So in some of that research, I don't think they're highlighting class size as I think actually it's talking about the importance of high quality core instruction.
Okay.
So I think there is that separate body of research we've referred to, but that is not what has been illuminated or highlighted in that research that we're talking about, where the real focus is on high quality instructional materials that are grade level aligned.
Okay, thank you.
But I mean, like we always say, if we have teeny tiny classes, we would all love that for sure. Just to be very clear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Chair.
Board Member Opperman.
Thank you, Chair. Member Bryden, you hit a lot of things, and I appreciate it quite a bit. And one of the ones that you brought up for grades above 4, 5, and 6, bringing the kids who had not been in the program and not in the progression of the early part. If the student moves into the district in 2nd grade and is not at grade level, I mean, are we boosting our literacy RTI stuff to make that happen in a better way? Second or third tier RTI, because it's beyond, you're going to have an unevenness there. So I don't know if that was something in the plan.
I had referred to the intervention guide before, and so there's an initial placement test that would be given, and so that would give us some idea about what the students' needs are, and then we would be able to provide the direct instruction that's needed to. And our elementary schools are working really hard. It's difficult time. This is a systemic issue. Time is hard. So we want to make sure the students receive the core instruction, and then that additional instruction is provided outside that core instruction. So it's, there's a commitment to have all students receive the core instruction and have their specific needs met at a time outside of that instructional time.
Thank you. Another question I had was, in the PD time, you're taking, was it every other week all year, which is great. Absolute. Is there time in between that for the math, the Wabanaki, the social studies? You know, you brought it up, and it's absolutely true how much, you know, the intensity of learning a new program, one new program is critically is significant, and it's a concern, and I'm just hoping. And particularly new teachers, because we will be having a lot of new teachers who might need extra time, extra mentoring. You know, I've been there, done that. So I just wonder what's going on with the other PD time, or is there? Will there be other PD time if a principal chooses that PD time for science or Wabanaki?
Yeah, so there, like I said, there is flexibility with the principals. So it's not, we're not really directing anything at the district level except the PD that's provided by the actual curriculum developers, right? That's going to be the launch. And then there's sort of like checkpoints throughout the year with them. But along the way, the principals in collaboration with their leadership team will develop a professional development and really collaboration planning schedule or calendar that supports their teachers in the way that they need it. So like Angie's school, they've been doing the mods forever. They're going to be really focusing on the CKLA because that's going to be new to them, right? So that's a good example. Or like, you know, Ocean Avenue, they've been doing IB forever. They're going to really dig into the science this year and hold off on the EL because they already have this sort of interdisciplinary work and they're going to, you know, adopt the following year. So everybody's kind of has a different focus and they're going to be able to give their teachers what they need in order to be successful. Does that make sense?
Can I add one thing to that? I just, I do think that when we do professional development planning, we think kind of comprehensively. So you have 4 Wednesdays a month. You also have 2 additional hours per month per educator that you can leverage. There's the in-school collaboration time. And then we have other structures, for example, the monthly professional development opportunities for new teachers. So one of the things we've been focused on is having better coordination and collaboration, for example, with the academic team and the new teacher mentoring process so that teachers who are new are learning the actual tools that we're using versus like having kind of high level professional development once per month. So I think everything Jesse's saying is right, but I just want to acknowledge that principals are looking holistically at these sort of buckets of time they have to then place their priorities in. But the big focus with the elementary schools is at least twice per month, there's this dedicated collaboration time. So you don't end up with like every Wednesday, so many different things, which is sometimes how it's felt for us in the past.
Thank you.
We're going to go to Board Member Russell Better and then Vice Chair Bondo and then Victor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for laying all this out. Very exciting. I just wanted to share personally, I have a 3rd grader at Presumpscot, so got to watch, you know, her experience of Wabanaki studies, the, you know, expedition of salmon, the high quality materials, the reading, the writing, you know, just really exciting dynamic work and even getting to watch at field day using salmon in there, you know, like even the physical education part is integrated, right? So I guess one of my questions was just in loving to see this layout of, you know, from this school year to 27-28 for full adoption. And I think Julie asked a little bit about this and Sarah did as well. But I guess I'm just wondering, love that each school is going to be able to, you know, figure out the plan for development and training for staff. But I just wondered, maybe Angie and Joshua, if you could share just what do you think staff need, you know, to get there? I mean, I know some schools probably really need to develop all of these, right? And some maybe in one area have more, but just, you know, I'm happy to hear some of the time for professional development, but just maybe from a board perspective for us looking at this next, you know, 4 to 5 years, like how do we support making sure that our staff and buildings have what they need to get there? So I guess just would love to hear any like concrete things that you think would help us to move in this direction.
One thing that's been different at East End this year that has been certainly boosted my morale and has been really powerful is building in team planning time into the Wednesday afternoons. Prior to this year, Wednesday afternoons have felt very directed, very much someone standing in the front of the cafeteria, delivering information to us, handing out handouts, and then going home. And applying some of that in our classrooms. And also, frankly, we're tired and forgetting about some of it. This year in my building, we've been provided with more time on those Wednesdays to work with our teams. And I think that that team time needs to be a combination of things. I was an instructional coach at East End for 6 years and then returned to the classroom. And I think that that time with coaches is really important, but it's also really important for teaching teams to have time where they're in control of the agenda within the parameters of we're working on literacy and we're looking at EL reading. But teachers being able to lead those conversations within their teams and directing that work and prioritizing what needs to be done and leveraging the individual strength of each of the teachers on the team. There are 3 teachers on my team. We all have different levels of experience and we all have different levels of expertise, and allowing us to bring those things to the table and figuring out among the dynamics of my team how we're going to bring things to fruition and how we're going to support each other in our own unique ways. So it does seem to keep coming back to time. So I'm excited at a concrete plan that I did not know about that is explicitly stating that there will be team time built in to work on what is admittedly an awful lot of new curriculum. And I'm smiling and having a sunny face on, but I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of time where I feel really overwhelmed and sometimes I feel really inadequate because everything's new. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing anything very well. So having the time to dig deeper into it, instead of being like, all right, I got to figure this out in my 30 minutes a day of planning time, I have 40 pages I need to read in the various curriculums to teach tomorrow's lessons. So I think that really structuring that time in is going to be really important, and allowing teachers to have those conversations and have some control over the direction those conversations go.
Thank you. And Millie, would you clarify? I think you said, so has some of that started this year, but just hasn't been that concrete expectation of the team planning on when?
Yeah. I mean, I also, a lot of so one of the things we've been wanting to focus on are the professional learning plans with our schools. So that was actually one of our strategies we specifically talked about in one of our learning targets for our school leadership team this year that we did not end up getting to go as deep on as we had hoped, given how everything played out this year. Because what we observe from our seats is that time is structured very differently. So some buildings, it's almost exclusively teacher-led collaboration, and in other places, it's more like what Joshua talked about. But it is our intent and goal that really the spirit of that time is for educators to get together, collaborate with each other. And the other thing I just tell people that's tricky is we have been building a lot of the foundation. So it feels like a lot of new. We did not have an instructional vision before, period. We did not have a scope and sequence. We only had we had 2 math curriculum at the elementary level. That didn't, that was it as far as district coherent curriculum. We had a total investment of $75,000 pre-K through 12 for curriculum district-wide, all content areas. So that's what's been tricky as we've been trying to place these foundations in place. So it's like, for Joshua's point, it's like a lot coming at you that you're not yet feeling efficacious around. But now why we're so excited is that we have the full vision, we have the map, and we can say to schools, all right, look at your context, look at your data. What do your teachers say they want to be prioritizing and focus, and you can go deep. So I think we're at kind of a turning point in that, which will then enable that kind of professional time to feel hopefully even more like what Joshua says is kind of the shift and transition that's happening, which is more how many schools are doing it, but it varies pretty much right now.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Thank you for the presentation, and it took the time for me to process, and my brain still getting little froze right now, because when I look at the the data here from the race, elementary school to the middle school, and I see all the time Black students all the time below the norms. So I try to hear some hopes here right now to see where we're going to that with that direction with the implementation that I see over 2028, and also the support of the teachers. How can we help those students to move forward, to go little up to the norms? Because when I see most of the issues here happening from elementary schools here, and the 5th grade to the 6th grade, so that the transition right here. So where they leaving the elementary school and going to the middle school, because the middle school is the key major for transition to high school and to the higher education. And when we're missing that trend right there, that pace of learning process, it's just a failure when they graduate from high school and going to college and be on probation because they have an issue on reading and writing in English. So my question is that I just want, before leaving the board after my term, just to have that sense of that big investment we did for the core instruction a couple of years ago. Then we're going to the right direction to make sure that what we're implementing and giving the support to teachers and having them the time to really assess each of those students so that we know each specific needs and building some strategic learning for each specific ones. So when we implement those curriculum, those students can be able to benefit. I just want to hear if we go into those paths or when we implementing that curriculum is for the broad classroom. Because when I look at the pace, then the teacher, they don't have a lot of time, but we have to build those time so they can be able to accept and going to the change of those curriculum in a couple of years. So what kind of hope are we see for those students? Because year by year, and I look at the COVID also, year by year, those Black students are all the time having those literacy below the norms, and they're really failing. I just want to hear some hopes here.
Yeah.
While we have this implementation, while we're moving those students forward, those are specific students. Yes.
I have some hope.
Okay, good. I want to hear that.
I have tons of hope. I see it every single day in my building.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have a huge amount of hope. One of the things that I want to be talking about over the next year as Teacher of the Year is I want to be elevating and lifting the discourse about high needs urban schools, because what's happening in my school every day is impressive. And I will say that I'm skeptical in a healthy way of new curriculum when it comes down the pike. I've worked in Portland Public Schools since 1992. There have been a lot of curricular changes in those years. I would say it's actually about every 4 or 5 years we change the curriculum entirely in the district. And I will tell you, although I haven't gone deep into EL reading and writing, by the way, I did think of something structurally that happens in writing, my students learned how to write a paragraph in the first module. And when I talked to the 3rd grade teachers, they were showing me what they were doing in 3rd grade in their pilot, and I could see the next step of paragraph writing from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, and I'll be teaching 3rd grade next year, so I'm excited about that. I am seeing discourse in my classroom, in my 2nd grade classroom, that far exceeds the level of the discourse that I used to have in my 4th and 5th grade classrooms at East End Community School. I think that the programs that we are implementing are much more structured to be student-centered and provide entry levels at all levels for students who are able to work on grade level standards and interact and have a relationship with grade level materials, even if their entry point is different along the continuum. So I have great hope because I'm watching my 2nd graders have these amazing and deep conversations about their learning. And I know that in the past, my 5th graders were not coming to me with those skills. And so I think there's a great deal of hope here. It is going to be a challenging 4 or 5 years as we develop proficiency and work toward implementing program with efficacy. But I feel really hopeful about it. And I've been teaching for a long time. Apparently, I keep being described as a veteran educator. But I don't have any cynicism as a veteran educator of what we're moving forward. And to your point, there is an urgency and an awesome responsibility of all of our teachers to lift our BIPOC students up. And I think that materials are being selected through that lens in a way that they were not which was not a lens that was being applied in the past.
Right, thank you.
I would just add to, like, we've been doing this for over 10 years now. So it's, and it's when there was conversation about which literacy program to adopt, for Zumscott, the teachers, wanted to, have a conversation about that and make sure that EL was a part of that curriculum. And I think it's really important that we're going back to phonics. And I think what we're going to find your point, I think we're going to find our teachers really happy that we have that program, because it's going to give them what they need to teach phonics, to teach the early foundational skills. I think that, it may be harder with EL, but with time, it's going to be fine. It's just going to take a little time to get people there, but it's worth the time. The engagement is incredible. The writing is incredible. Come over to Presumpscott. I'll show you the writing. I'll show you the way kids engage. Come into the classrooms. Watch them. They're incredible. And I'm not saying it's just the curriculum, right? Because it takes good teachers to actually implement the curriculum, but it's both. And it's happening. And I think we're absolutely moving in the right direction in adopting both of those. And also the Wabanaki units. We can't wait forever to do those units, right? We've been waiting forever to do those units. It is time, and we might not do all of them at once, but we'll do what we can. And we'll find ways to, make sure that kids are getting the content that they deserve to get at the elementary level. So as hard as it may be, people need time. We'll give them time in our buildings, and we will give them grace to fail. I would say, I know that's not like a concrete thing, but it's okay to fail. And we'll be there for you to, support and make sure that we can, get back up and do it again. So that gives me hope.
And I just wanted to add one thing that kind of connects to all the questions you've been asking tonight is, how are we going to know where our students are at? In EL, there's 3 units to each module. And at their grades K2, there's a end of unit assessment in a final module assessment that's a performance task. So there's built-in assessing that's going on in ways that, as a teacher in this district for 22 years, I've never had this handed to me. I've always been creating it. And so that will help lift the expectations and the rigor and the alignment. And we'll have the collaborative planning time to look at student work in a way. And hopefully at the end, I think one thing that teachers don't often get to do is celebrate their successes and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And so we're going to be in both the programs in EL and CKLA skills. There's an incredible amount of information, and we're going to start small and really focus on one thing. And then as our expertise and ability to use these resources develops, so will our ability to pinpoint and lift all our students up. I think it's really exciting to have all that. And the other thing is, I think teachers need to be given the message that we're going to do our very best, but we often try and do so much. And I think that message consistently from to each other, to any opportunity you have, is just that recognition. I feel very selfish that I got this amazing experience as Maine Teacher of the Year to hear that message in a way. And I just think that as many times as you can do that through this process, and stopping in a classroom and being like, hey, wow, look at what your kids are doing, and saying it, that is the best gift of all. So
thank you, Chair.
Board Member Victor?
Can I say one just quick thing? I want to mention too that, I'm very excited we're going to have a data team. So, I mean, it's been problematic that as a district, we have not had data capacity. And so I want to acknowledge that partly to Mickey. I mean, I think this acknowledgement that this work takes time, this deep work, we see some of those emerging wins from what the data that we saw from our foundational skills work already. But I think that's going to be really key, because I think our team has collectively felt really held back by not having sort of the capacity to also be looking at things like, okay, like we set out to do this thing. Can we look at the data? Can we disaggregate it and understand the distinction between students that just got here and students that have been with us and all that? So we've got an incredible pipeline for both the data director and data manager that we're working on right now. So I'm feeling very hopeful about that. And that will be a huge enabler as well for us to continue to reflect on the implementation of this work.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. My first, I think, has been answered, but I want to just be explicit in asking it again. But how will multilingual learners who are early on in their English development engage with this curriculum?
Can I answer that? Can I partially answer that question? So they are right now, Emily, every day in every classroom at Brasumscott. We do the push-in model. So they are not pulled out during our literacy hour and a half, our expedition, our mods. They are pulled out we have little blocks of 30 minutes to provide content literacy support based on those mods. So they are fully engaged. In fact, we had Lyseth over this morning in a 3rd grade classroom. And I think they were pretty amazed by the fact that all the students in there were, they were not just the students who can read. They're brand new students to Maine. It's incredible.
And I'll just add that, when we think about newcomers, they need both explicit language support and then also the literacy around reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And so we're really supporting schools and developing structures to do both of those things, right? So there is some a period of time when kids arrive to the school where they need maybe a short amount of time where they're pulled out and given that very explicit language instruction, or they're doing both and, right? So they're included in Brasumscott and also getting language instruction on, separate, but in addition to. And then the curriculum, so for K-2, all kids are in there. For the foundational skills, there's no reason to pull someone out to do that language separate from the foundational skills because all students need that explicit and systematic phonics instruction, regardless of where they're coming from in terms of language development. For 3 through 5, the EL curriculum, for foundational skills, those students would get that additional support that Cindy talked about in addition to the language support. But then the EL curriculum it's known for having really great scaffolds. And for multilingual learners and students with special needs, it's built for that. And so at a very early stage in their language development, they would be included in that classroom with those additional supports.
Awesome. Yeah. That's so good to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you, Angie, for providing the on the ground insight. It's incredibly helpful. My next question is about the cost of the curriculum. I know the various curriculum. I know that we've tried to use ESSER funds to pay for the upfront costs, but I'm wondering in terms of the ongoing costs, what those might look like. And I want to ensure that the board is aware of what it will look like for us to commit to this through the implementation and well beyond.
Yeah. We could follow up with some more specifics, I know, just in terms of our time this evening. But so back when I think maybe it was Aura who asked about, or Sarah, what do we need from the board to support this work? I wanted to come back around to the resource point. So we're trying to be strategic about really leveraging these one-time resources for things like curriculum. But there is both the materials and the professional development. And so I think we'll follow up with some more kind of projected sense of the costs over time, but we are trying to put a big investment in right now while we have that set aside resource, and we will not have to do that ongoing. Especially literacy curriculum is especially expensive to get upfront because you have to buy all the texts. But then there will be recurring maintenance costs and professional development costs over time for sure.
Okay. And I don't necessarily need to see the numbers in the short term. Just I mainly wanted to raise it because the board needs to make a commitment to see this work forward and through. And
yeah, and that's been part of our challenge is that because there was no investment in curriculum in the district previously, at least at the system level, it feels like adding a lot, but it's because we started from almost nothing.
And I particularly say this and raise this at a moment where we're about to have to confront budget cuts. So it's incredibly important that we see this through.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that.
And my final question is perhaps quite ignorant, so I apologize for it. But I wonder if adopting the EL curriculum will move any of our elementary schools, in addition to Presumpscot, to become EL schools.
I think that so this has been a question people have asked us. Are we all supposed to be an EL school? At this point, there isn't some secret plan to that effect. For example, I don't know if Bev is still here, but I know that was a big conversation for Ocean. That's an IB school, International Baccalaureate. And so that was, something we looked at critically is, does this particular curriculum fit within the IB model? And I think we feel strongly that it does, right? Because there's these themes of inquiry and experiential learning, interdisciplinary work. Like that's more where I see us headed, is that we're all moving in that more inquiry-based, experiential, interdisciplinary direction. There are models out there like IB and EL that are designed for that intent. So who knows, like where things will evolve, but that's not so much that we see everybody going to an EL school. I think it's more about everybody coming into greater alignment with that broad instructional vision with those key concepts.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And then my last thing is not a question, but just thought I wanted to note that I believe this is really the culmination of your work, Malia, and your work joining the district to help us write the Portland Promise, and seeing that vision all the way through to this curriculum vision and rollout. So I just wanted to recognize that, especially as you move to leave the district, and just recognize the transformational work that you've done, and that we will all carry forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do feel like it's been foundation building. So I'm so hopeful and confident in the team and Aaron and in Ryan, that this is a group that's committed to the deep implementation of the work, because I think it's the right stuff, but we need to stay the course. So thank you.
Beautiful. I've got a couple, and then I'll go to you, Board Member Opperman. And I just recognize the time, but I think it's good time that we are using. I think Angie said that it's worth the time, right? So thank you all for all the perspectives that you've brought, the thoughtful presentation. Like I really did appreciate having a teacher and a principal in this, because I feel like we really got a holistic kind of experience about what this is like. So thank you for that. I am curious how the board will know about the implementation over the years and where we are, like what is the anticipated kind of like reporting of the progress on that. And then point B to this question is like, what are the feedback strategies or techniques that you're using to get feedback from educators who are using this?
I think that with priority, do you want to answer it, Aaron, or you want me to? So, I'd mentioned the data teams. So I think that we were in a habit and a ritual of like looking at our priorities and having kind of progress checks. That's actually part of, I think, Vice Chair Bonda will know, in our equity policy. We talk about accountability and reporting out on progress. So I would imagine kind of an annual check on kind of the metrics that we're using to look at the work. I think we'll be focusing in the next several years on the implementation metrics. So I think that's just something to call out. So rather than the outcome per se, the inputs and the outputs that then will lead to the outcomes over time. So I think that should be an expectation everybody has, that we have some sort of report out on implementation and what we're starting to see emerging from that at the student level.
Beautiful. Aaron, were you going to add something to that or no?
No, I think just, that's going to be our focus, right? The implementation, we have the foundations, this kind of pivot to have that deep. And I think, as we tease out what those actual implementation measures are, right? That'll be a focus of board updates and progress monitoring.
Great.
And to answer your question about how we're getting feedback from educators, I think we're flexing that muscle, to be honest. Like, I think we've done a lot of different things this year. We've done focus groups, we've done surveys. We have our vertical teams that are really like kind of representative of folks across the district and across schools. And then we also have at each school, they are also getting feedback from their teachers around the right path forward. So kind of at the district level and at the school level. I wouldn't say we have like, here's the process that we go through to do that. We're, I think iterating as we go along. And I do think we've learned a lot this year and hope to like sort of systematize that in the future.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. And then just one last question. I think, Cindy, you might know the answer to this one. And I recognize not having data people may have prevented this from happening, but on the great gains that you were showing, like, were you able to disaggregate that data by race at all?
So that is a question that I asked of Early Bird, and they actually, because it is a newer program, they rewrote their code so that we could identify our multilingual learners. Great. And so individual classroom teachers can pull that, but me as an individual to go through and pull every classroom teacher would have taken me a long time. But it is something that, for example, I did do on Lexia. You can create, I won't tell you how I did it, but anyways, I did it because Carlos asked for some data on our exited fifth graders, and they're supposed to make 4 to 6 levels of progress. And they exited of the 107 students, all but 23 made between 8 and 12 levels of progress. The 23 who did not were not meeting their usage in the classroom. And of those 23, there were 3 who had around 65% of usage, and they were spending inordinate amount of time on specific skills. And so that flags that we need to support educators in the classroom to know that while students are engaging in the work, we need to be monitoring, because, like, for example, one student had 9 attempts on a skill that was supposed to take 5 minutes and it took them 18. So if a student is getting stuck there, but that was only 3 of them. And then our newest arrivals had between 12 and 16 levels of growth when I looked. So I really think it's important to do that on an ongoing basis. And I'm working as a strong advocate with Early Bird to make that happen.
Awesome. Beautiful. I love that you had that in your head. And I love that you are asking the creators of these projects to do better. Thank you.
Yeah. The question actually got me invited to a roundtable recently in Massachusetts. So I got to represent PPS at a bilingual, multilingual roundtable about assessment for multilingual. So it was great.
Beautiful. Thank you. Board Member Opperman, one last question.
Not a question, a comment. Thanks. This was a lot of work. You're still doing a lot of work. A great deal of thought into how it can be implemented. I can see, and your honesty and candidacy of when it isn't perfect, I think is important. It won't be glassed over. I think the board is looking forward to seeing how this progresses. And you put up with all of our really picky questions, which is very good.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that we're going to continue to have questions about this, but let's hold them and bring them to the superintendents in our regular meetings. I think that we are due for a break. Yeah. All right, so we're going to be moving on to old business next, which is our consideration and action to approve the PAA contract for 2023 to 2026. Is there a motion? Actually, do you want to speak to it, Superintendent Townsend?
Sure. Just as a reminder, apologize. close this. Just want to recognize the collaborative bargaining process that we engaged in with PAA, meeting about 4 times over January to April to come to this agreement. And we feel like this contract makes significant strides to ensure our regional competitiveness and most importantly, to provide a strong internal pathway for PPS staff into leadership roles by elevating our entry-level pay for administrators. There are a number of other language changes that help us to clarify our working agreements moving forward. And I want to thank members of the PAA bargaining team, certainly Dr. Stevens, who's with us here this evening, as well as, the folks on our team, Board Member Bryden, Barrett Wilkinson, and Richard Moore for all of their work on this contract. So we're excited to ratify this and move forward with our new agreement with PAA.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So is there a motion to approve the contract between the Portland Board of Public Education and Portland Administrators Association from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026? Board Member Figdor, thank you. Is there a second? Board Member Russellbetter, any questions on the motion? All right. Seeing none. We don't do public comment. Do we do public comment on? Yeah, I think we should because it's not on a specific personnel. Right. Any public comment? Let me just double check on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Any board discussion?
Chair, a question. I just was skimming it and I noticed some of the dates were things that were put into effect in 2021, and I didn't know if we're just continuing those effect. There were several things that were like effective 2021, so I didn't know if that was indeed the case. I'll find it. It's like at page 20, page 21. I think it was in that area. I was looking.
There was an update, maybe what you're referencing to, just an error that'll be corrected around.
It's the longevity,
all of those were language that were approved in the prior contract and will move forward. Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what my question.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Let's go ahead and do a roll call. Oh, sorry. Board member.
Just want to see if Ms. Stevens wants an opportunity to say something.
I just wanted to thank everybody who's involved with the process, the PAA members and the district members and the chair, Sarah, for being a part of the committee. It only took 4 meetings, which felt really great. We would use the win-win model. And I think we were able to really get some things moving forward that's really helpful to the membership and also really helpful to the district. If we're able to pay our APs more, then they're going to be rising up from our teachers and then staying with us. So I just really appreciate that and thank everyone who has been involved.
Thank you. Okay, so now we can move to a vote, please.
Great. Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes.
Member Bryden?
Yes.
Member Figdor?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Abstain.
Member Opperman?
Yes.
Member Russell-Better?
Yes.
Member Youssef?
It's not here.
Oh, he had to go. Okay. Member Ellis?
Yes.
Member Hemond?
Yes.
And Chair Lentz?
Yes. So the motion passes with board members Biliou and Youssef not present, board member Grant abstaining, but we still pass it. And the students voted with the majority. So on to new business. So we have up first the first read of a proposal to expand the boys high school hockey co-op, which I know that we also have a workshop on that. So we're not going to do any conversation around that now. And then we have the first read of proposed changes to policy BEDH, which is our public participation in board meetings. We also have a workshop on that. So we're going to hold any comments or questions to the workshop. And then we have the first read of the ESOL resolution. Who would like to speak to that?
I was going to say something quick and then if the board members wanted to speak to it as well.
Great.
And we can talk, more about it next week at second read, but just, I wanted to acknowledge that this, resolution that calls for all of us to become, to get some form of credential or certification as an ESOL educator builds on years of work by ESOL educators and the former language department head, Grace Valenzuela. So I want to acknowledge and honor that this is bringing forward work that has been, kind of underway in different ways in this district for years. It's responsive to feedback we're hearing from teachers that it's essential that everyone has skills around meeting the needs of our multilingual learners. It acknowledges that everyone has multilingual learners in their classes and we're all responsible for all students. And it sets the table for this work to grow over time. I wanted to just acknowledge that teachers have a lot on their plate. And so the strategy for how we get to where this resolution is calling for us to go needs to be informed by educators to ensure we can move toward this goal in ways that are supportive and empowering versus draining and overwhelming. And I think there are lots of creative ideas that educators have already come up with for us to do that. I also want to just acknowledge that this is about growing our skills as administrators, coaches, members of the central office academic team. So this is not just a charge for educator or teachers or classroom teachers, but for all of us collectively. And to remind folks that we're initiating this now because of the growing feedback we've been hearing about the need, the fact that we continue to welcome in hundreds of new students throughout the year, almost all of whom are multilingual learners. And we have the resources right now to support the design of this via ESSER. So that's unique about this moment in time that we haven't had in the past. And ultimately, we do imagine that this will become part of what attracts people to come to Portland Public Schools because they're going to be earning this some form of this credential and training while they're here and a part of this community. And then my final thing I just wanted to note is that there are many other districts and states who are already doing this. And so we're kind of getting caught up to them and have lots of ways that we can learn from colleagues and peers across our country who've been on this path for a while. So I'm just deeply grateful to board members Figdor, Opperman, and Bondo for sponsoring this resolution and to the language development team and everyone they've been collaborating with to start to initiate the plans around this. I think this has the potential to be transformative for our system.
Thank you. Yeah, any board member like to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have one thing to add, which is bringing forward a comment that Carlos Gomez made, which is that the value that this will have to all of our learners. And so this is going to help all Portland Public School students.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So this will come up for a second read at the next meeting on the 20th. And then moving to our next order of new business, we have first read of a proposed amendment to the 2023-2024 school calendar. We also will have a workshop on that a bit later. So we're going to put a pin in that. And then we have a first read of
Chair Lentz, I don't think we're going to do a workshop. Did we get that changed in the agenda?
Yeah, change it.
I think it's changed in the agenda. If you were you were correct.
Seeing it.
Oh. But
Yeah,
I could say just a quick thing on that, if that's okay, and then we don't need to do a workshop. Great. So just so folks have a little bit of context before you come for discussion and vote next week, this is really coming out of the need for us to shore up our safety training. And this is in relationship to active shooter drills, threat assessment, crisis prevention intervention, as well as we need time to roll out the operational systems that are designed to address some of the root issues that broke down this year, namely ADP and the payroll system. And so we had explored the possibility of finishing school earlier this year, so not going after Juneteenth, and using that time for professional development for educators to do this training. After consultation with both the chair and the vice chair, we ended up deciding that the timing of that move wasn't right. We didn't have plans for food service for students that needed that, but the need is still there. I also want to acknowledge that our principals have advocated for this additional time to do this kind of essential kind of training. They have written us a letter and they are prepared to advocate to you directly, but we assured them that we would bring this forward and that we agreed with them and we do our own advocacy for this proposal. It's a proposal to start school one day later than is currently planned in the calendar. So it would be to add one more day to our August Institute for Educators. We, of course, contemplated the question of, well, why don't you just use one of the days you have for this training? You just finished listening to the team talk about the absolute essentialness of that time for teachers to work on the planning and preparation for the deep teaching and learning work that we're doing. And so we felt like that was just completely undermining of those significant efforts. We see this adaptation to August Institute as a 1 year only. So we don't imagine needing to every year add a day to Institute. We just need to shore things up. I think you've probably heard from families and educators that people do hold some anxiety around this and want to make sure that they have an understanding of the training and what we're supposed to do. To be clear, the training will continue beyond just this additional day. So we're going to plan training for leaders at our August retreat with them. This will be sort of a whole group set of things. And then, for example, with the active shooter drills, all of the schools will be signing up for school specific work where they're walking through their own buildings and getting really detailed about their plans. So this is not comfortable stuff to talk about, but sadly, this is essential. And there's other kind of elements to the safety training as well. So ultimately what this means is that the new first day that we're proposing would be Wednesday, September 6th. It's a Wednesday. We'd have it as a full day. And then the pre-K and K already is starting on the 7th, and we continue to start them on the 7th. So rather than 2 days later, they'd start 1 day later. And this does stick within the requirements from the state as far as how many days we need to have for instruction. So I know we'll talk about it next week, but as you're thinking about this, we just wanted to make sure you're grounded in that context and the why behind the proposal.
Perfect. Thank you for all of that context. So since we are not doing a workshop on that, we're going to move to our last order of new business, which is the first read of the proposal to authorize the fiscal 23 budget transfers. You want to speak to that, Aaron?
Sure. Yep. So this was a topic in our May 8th Finance Committee meeting in terms of just end of the year budget management. So board policy requires that we get approval from the board for any transfers over $50,000 between one of the 11 state cost categories. And so as you can see in the memo, I won't recite it here, I'm looking to make a set of transfers to be able to kind of clean up our books, through the end of the year. The memo outlines those specific transfers and the drivers kind of behind the need to make them, namely things that we've talked about, increased special education out of district costs, some of the additional system implementation costs as related to ADP. And we do have resources available in other budget categories to offset those increases in some of those maneuvers. So it still is, below the 5% cap. So the state has a 5% cap of moving resources across the expenditure categories, but all of the proposed transfers are well below that. So this is not, there was contemplation about if there was additional resources needing to engage with city council. Just to be clear from that discussion, this is not proposing that at this juncture. We're not forecasting that need. So this is just a board level decision making around budget transfers.
Wonderful. So that will be up for a vote at the next meeting. So with that, we're going to move into our workshops. Should we adjourn first and then do workshops? Yes. Sorry. So let's move into adjournment. So is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting? Thank you, Board Member Opperman. A second, I saw that, Board Member Grant. All those in favor? Beautiful. So please don't leave. We're doing workshops, but we are adjourned at 8:53 p.m.